Hey guys, what's going on? Djriff here, and today I'm going to be talking about Haste versus Mastery for clarity of power. Now, for this discussion, I assume that you're already familiar with Insanity and 35% Haste and why that matters. If not, click the link in the description below, and I've already made a video explaining those. So, this has been asked to me a couple times via Twitter or whatever medium that you want for social media of when like haste versus like mastery, which is worth more in what situations. So first and foremost, 35% haste is like the absolute threshold that you want to go. No more, no less. And the reason for that is when you have when you have 35% haste, your shadow fiend will never overlap with insanity. So I mean, like when it comes off cooldown, so you'll never have to interrupt an insanity to cast it, and thus losing DPS because of it. So, in terms of haste versus mastery, haste scales down worse and worse the shorter a fight becomes. And the reason for that is some of the top log pulls on Mythic Iron Reaver right now are sub like 40 seconds. That is a ridiculously short amount of time, considering that you can lust on the pull, and by the time lust comes off, you're already in execute phase, at which point your haste is a moot point and it's not really valuable anymore. So what you need to do when you take that into consideration is at that point the value of haste is so low that every single other stat is a billion times better than it. Now, keep in mind that the GCD cap is still at 50%, which means a 1 second GCD, and that even though it will lower the cooldown of Mind Blast significantly, it's not worth the squeeze. So, not to mention it's going to mess with your Shadow Fiend timing and Insanity clipping and all that sorts of stuff. It's just not fun to mess with. So ideally, if you are on farm and you are in these kind of pulls, it's actually better to stack Mastery, including your weapon enchant, which you should be doing already, because when running 35% haste, you don't want to suddenly get a haste proc, and that'll just screw your whole rotation over. But you want to be running the Mastery enchant and full Mastery gems, and have, at most, if you can, 5% haste. Now, that's the base amount of haste that you have as a Shadow Priest. Lust on top of that will put you at exactly 35%, and it'll make the rotation, line up. It's really difficult to get that like low of haste, like intentionally, but there's a lot of gear floating around that you can do it. That being said, it's still better to take a piece of gear that has higher mastery, even with haste on it, as your mastery will scale higher and higher the shorter a fight is. So take that into consideration when you are going into farm. Now, if you're not on farm, then of course any fight that's really like 2 minutes plus is a fight that you're going to want to have 35% haste on. Now, there are some situations where that's not going to be good, and the main two are fights that are sub 1 minute, and fights where you're going to be able to snipe a lot with Shadow Word Death. Alright, that's really all I have to talk about. If there's any questions, please leave them in the comments below, and I will do my best to answer them. Have a good one.